Neil Martin OBE is a community leader, chair of the Interfaith Youth Trust and Yom HaShoah UK, but is best known to us as the Chief Executive of JLGB. Born and raised in Gants Hill, Neil grew up in the Essex Jewish community, attending Ilford Jewish Primary School. It was at the age of 14 that Neil first joined JLGB as a member of Redbridge Band. After working in teaching and young people skills in JLGB, it made sense that after graduating with his Masters in Digital Practices for the Arts and Media, Neil stayed on to lecture and share his knowledge for another 3 years, volunteering with Redbridge all the while, and becoming their conductor and musical director, a role that he continues to fulfill on a weekly basis. In April 2005, Neil became Chief Executive of JLGB and hasn't looked back since. Neil has transformed the UK's longest-serving Jewish youth organisation, JLGB, into a double national award-winning, thriving, innovative and much-respected youth charity, not just in the Jewish community, but across wider society as well. Neil strongly believes that every child really does matter, and it has become a leading expert in creating faith and culturally sensitive programmes that remove barriers to universal youth programmes. Neil was named the 40 under 40 in May 2015 by the Jewish News. And of course, in June 2016, Neil was also awarded his OBE for services to young people and interfaith relations in the Queen's 90th birthday honours list, in a week where he famously met Prince Charles 3 times in 1 week. Though he hates to blow his own trumpet, after much persuasion, it is my absolute pleasure and honour to introduce the man responsible for the success of the organisation we love for 15 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our honoured guest, Neil Martin OBE. Good evening, Neil. How are you? Oh, you're on mute. Somebody unmute Neil, please.
Thank you. We've got so many safeguarding things in our Zoom that even the CEO can't unmute himself. That's all part of it. But after 75 shows, we know what we're doing. But hi, Sydney. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay.
So, how's lockdown been treating you, and how are you keeping positive?
Well, it's been a while now. I think that I've said this to many people, but I was practicing for lockdown since about 1996. This is the perfect set of circumstances for me. Running an organisation from my bed in my pajamas is the dream. But of course, this is in the backdrop of so much chaos and anxiety for many people that it's not been an easy time for many. So it's. And we'll talk about it, I'm sure. JLGB has been the focus for me to make sure that we stay positive and support everyone in a time that is really uncertain for people.
Definitely. We are really pleased to have you on JLGB Virtual tonight as we celebrate 125 years of JLGB. As you know, of course, together with you and the professional and volunteer teams, we've been boosting positivity and keeping children and their families active, healthy and entertained for 21 solid weeks now since lockdown began, with the help of a special guest each evening. So other than Lord Levy asking you, what made you say yes to joining us this evening?
Well, highly reluctantly in many ways, because like many of the charity CEOs that have been on this show, you lead an organisation, you're not always out the front selling oneself in that sense. So it's not something I do lightly. But after 75 shows and after the phenomenal work that everybody has done, it's a great opportunity to reflect back on that, talk about the future, hopefully, but also to thank everybody and you know, the volunteers, the professional staff, the young hosts, etc. It's all been phenomenal. And so I want to just, it's an opportunity to talk to, there's so many people in the Zoom I'm very grateful for, and to wider Facebook and around the world that are watching about how we did it and why we are who we are. And yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on and being able to speak to us all about that. So I'm going to jump back to the very beginning now. Tell us about your childhood and the youth opportunities you had. You went to Ilford Jewish Primary School, and according to your mother, you were the quietest child in the classroom. You then joined JLGB at 14 as a young, shy boy. So what impact did it have on you? What did JLGB really give you as a child?
I was, and I'm sure she's watching. She's watched every other show, and she's watched every single thing I've done in my entire life, and been to every JLGB event since May the 1st, 1992, when I joined JLGB. So why would tonight be any different? But I was painfully shy and quiet, and a daydreamer, as are those teachers that are watching, and I can see one of them in here from Ilford Jewish. I didn't talk to anybody, and I daydreamed all day, and was really in another world, and getting on with everything else, and didn't really interact in a whole variety of ways. There's reasons for that are not that complicated, but JLGB was the first opportunity to really kind of come out of my shell, to learn new skills, etc. I'm hugely grateful to JLGB. It's partly why I do what I do now, but I've always understood implicitly what JLGB does, because it did for me exactly what it's designed and what a national organisation is designed to do. It found me at a pathway as good as Ilford Jewish Primary School was. My secondary school, Beis Shammai Grammar School, for those watching, I could write another book on. And this came at the right time for me to find my feet, find my voice. Got given a trumpet, which is the loudest instrument in the band, and I had no excuse. With the help of Linda Diamond and many others in Debs and JLGB, helped me find who I am in that sense. And through going through JLGB and a sense of belonging, sense of family, sense of opportunity, it gave me the thing that I was missing. And I've always called JLGB the dress rehearsal for real life. It gave me the space and the place to find out who I was, and to turn what I wanted to be into reality. And many years later, I find myself doing that for thousands of others.
I mean, JLGB, it really does just provide everybody with the opportunities to be themselves. And again, one of the many reasons why I love JLGB so much. So anyone that knows you or has been in your office will know that you love the Muppets and Transformers. Rumour has it that you wanted to be a puppeteer, and that you live your life by the Kermit the Frog quote, "I've got a dream too, but it's about singing and dancing and making people happy. That's the type of dream that gets better the more people you share it with." How has the Muppets creator Jim Henson and quotes like this influenced you? Did you ever anticipate that one day you'd be the charity CEO?
Well, the last bit first. It was not the plan at all, and I'll come back to how I got involved in being CEO, I guess, towards the end of this question. But I said before, I was a daydreamer. I had an imagination. I would doodle. I would sit. I would think. I could see a world. One of the things that frustrates my staff greatly is I'm a visual thinker. I can see an end result, three-dimensionally, full color, full sound, and view in my mind something, be it an event with Craig David, JLGB Virtual, etc. I can see and visualize, and that comes from years of dreaming and imagining a variety of things. And as a child, I was slightly obsessed with, I don't know why, the Muppet Show. The Muppet Show taught me many things, gave me a sense of comedy timing, allegedly, gave me an eclectic sense of music from all the guests that were on it, but also, for some reason, interest in puppetry and performing. And I think because I have essentially the face of Data from Star Trek with no emotion, it gave me the ability to perform with a puppet here, which the late Dame Simone used to find hilarious, and find an expression where I could not be me. And in that shy kid growing up, it was kind of a great outlet in that sense. But the morals and I've had the privilege of going to Jewish schools in my life. I'm very, very, very into and love ethics and all kinds of things. But the particular morals and values of the Muppets about a whole ragtag of people working together to get this show going and a sense of making millions of people happy, nothing makes me feel greater in all the rewards and things I've had than to see other people smile and enjoy stuff. I love creating that wow factor in the events that we do, etc., and giving people more, because I get my boost in the same way that in Monsters Inc. they get from the kids screaming the energy. My energy comes from other people smiling and being happy. It really is the one thing that drives me in that sense. If I can make somebody laugh, that really boosts me. And if you can make millions of people laugh, etc., or millions of people proud, or emote in some way, that's really important to me. And I think in that sense, Kermit the Frog was always kind of like this quiet guy that shouldn't have been a leader and found himself forced to the front and try to move an organization forward, which may or may not, depending on who you are, have some parallels to the work I do today. I couldn't possibly say. But in terms of leadership, in 1986, I went to the cinema to see Transformers the movie, the cartoon version, and there was this leader, Optimus Prime, that was just the hero, etc. And on screen, I went with my brother. I remember like it was yesterday. He died. A cartoon character in 1980s that you'd watched every week as an afternoon cartoon suddenly died, and it had this profound effect on me. Because as it did millions of kids around the world, because it was unexpected and there were lots of complaints about it, etc. But this particular hero kind of summed up leadership to me. And so when often I go to conferences and things, and I have to go to a few of these things over the years, and they talk about role models and leaders in that sense, and I have many JLGB and Jewish community mentors and leaders, but rather than talking about, this prime minister or that person here, the ethics and the morality of Jim Henson and the leadership of lighting our darkest hour and going forward of Optimus Prime are the two things that drive me, and are the two things potentially that means I want to put on a show with JLGB Virtual in a moment of need where we kind of make people happy in our darkest moments. So it's what drives me. There's nothing behind me other than making people happy and making people move forward to a more glorious day. It's no more black and white than that.
You truly do make everybody happy. And I mean, Virtual's been amazing in boosting so much positivity like that. So as we celebrate JLGB's 125th anniversary this year, how do you think that your time and experience at university studying and lecturing in digital practices has informed the way that you've transformed JLGB over the past 15 years?
So there's not many people sometimes that they often say, I did a degree in X, but now I do Y, and that the two are not connected. You wouldn't have thought that what I do or what I learned to study and thought about and did at university has a connection to what I do. But I live by the principles and morals of my studies literally every day. 15 years ago, 16 years ago now, in terms of preparing for it, my predecessor, Richard Weber, who was the JLGB Chief Executive then, had planned to retire. I was lecturing at university, as you say. I was building children's edutainment games. So again, the connection of the Muppets to actually using education to help young people study. In the same way Sesame Street helped the kids in the 80s with television, how could computers and mobile technology help in building mobile apps? I am, of course, an idiot, because if I'd have built mobile apps the last 15 years, I'd be funding JLGB, not running JLGB. But ultimately, my passion for this and doing this job comes from other reasons of wanting to help others in that sense. But 15 years ago, Richard Weber, who is an amazing man who doesn't get the credit he deserves, and my predecessor, Charles Kay, prior to him, Richard wanted to retire. And I was approached to say that your name had been put forward. And by the way, it's a job. It's not a volunteer position. But had you thought about it in that sense? I was very active in JLGB as a volunteer. I ran numerous camps and things with Edna and numerous people in the JLGB then, and Norman, who's our chairman, and John Fox and Jill Atfield interviewed me and said if I wanted to be involved. And I didn't know if I wanted to do it, by the way. It wasn't the plan. That's the most important thing. I had if I look back now and say this was where I was going to be, no plan to do that whatsoever. But I understood, as I said before, I understood what JLGB could do. I implicitly understood that here is a young person on a journey. Potentially they failed to launch in this way. Maybe they're too quiet. Maybe they're too loud. Maybe they lack this. Maybe they want to learn more. Everyone's got their own graphic equalizer of who they want to be. And JLGB finds that pathway and enhances the levels where maybe they're underperforming or have more potential to reach in that sense. So I understood that implicitly, but it was clouded by a nostalgia and a view within our community that meant after 110 years then, it was on its knees. I say that unashamedly that JLGB 15 years ago may not have existed a few years after that if it hadn't changed direction then. It's, from a funding perspective, we didn't have Lord Levy then, which I'll bring on to his story in a second, I'm sure. But it didn't have a sense of direction. It had gone through its 100th anniversary and that kind of stuff and not known who it was. It had its identity crisis like many other youth movements have had about who we're going to be. And many of the guests we had on here, I remember Henry Grimwald and others, who's a very good family friend, saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" etc. He's very proud of what we've become in that sense, and would say that I made the right decision. But him, as being, I think, president of the board of deputies at the time, this was an organisation that had been forgotten. It wasn't a case of being Cinderella, getting on with it as we have done for many years in that sense. Maybe it had its day, but at the same time, I was studying new media, how technology could help people, how the world was going to become about mobile phones, and interactivity, how we were going to connect in ways we didn't do before, how we could use technology to record recognition and do a whole variety of things, how the needs of young people were very different today in terms of the skills they need to thrive in a modern world of learning how to, and this again, it's 15 years ago, but it may feel quite modern now for some people, but this is why it was important then. The need to thrive with the languages they may learn, the coding they may learn, the values they need for today, the community cohesion. There was a new world out there that I felt needed an organization to help support it, but also an organization steeped in a proud history. Let's not confuse nostalgia with history, two very, very different things. Communities, when people landed off the boat from Liverpool and Cardiff and got to London and the East End for 100 and something years, had supported our community and was loved under the surface. If we could slam together the old world and the support and love of a structured organization with the new world of what young people actually needed and could bring the two together, we stood a chance of creating an organization that would be relevant for today and for today's young people. And it's a bit like rewiring our old house. You couldn't do that without the solid organization we had that had such great history behind it and great infrastructure behind it, and hundreds of committed volunteers who love the organization, and generations of people who met and married through it. That there's a love for JLGB out there like no other organization, but we weren't harnessing it. And the next generation didn't want to join something their parents were in. They wanted to join something that was relevant to them, etc. And over 15 years, slowly but surely, in some cases painfully along the way, but for change and with the support of our trustees and our professional staff and our president and numerous community people, we have made an organization that is right and fit for purpose for today's young people and beyond. And that comes from, in my mind, the ability to understand the outcomes of what you need to do and how technology and things can help you achieve that in a way that wasn't possible previously.
You have created an amazing organization, but I'm going to stop speaking for a little bit now, and we're going to go to a couple of audience questions. So our first question is from Abby Markovich.
Hi, Abby and Debbie.
Hello.
Hello.
So I know that music has been a massive part of your life ever since my mum, who's here with me, taught you at JLGB Redbridge Fans. You've played the last post at remembrance events all around the country and even on European battlefields with Ajax. So my question is, why is music so important to you, and how have these experiences impacted you?
Thank you, Abby. And music has been really important to me in terms of everything I've spoken about already. But on May the 30th, 1992, it was a Monday, I think. Jason will tell me it was a Thursday because it was bank holiday that week, but it was the first JLGB I went to. And I remember that date for a reason that will become obvious in a second. But my friend at school went to this organization and said, "You'd like to come along," etc. And I can't remember why I decided to go yes, but a few of us went, etc. And I arrived at what was then Beale High School, where brass band, Redbridge Band as it is now, was there, and Linda Diamond, who is still running it now and one of my greatest mentors over so many years, and gets hugely undeserved credit for what she's done for hundreds and hundreds of kids in the Redbridge Jewish community over many years, and has got 3 children carrying on that to this day as well, as she still does. I went to this thing and there was this amazing band playing, and I got given a trumpet. I actually wanted to play the saxophone, because Zoot in the Muppets played the saxophone, and that was my idea. But I was told by Debbie, I think, that we didn't have any saxophone. I know that's a lie, because I say that to every kid now when there's an instrument that they want to play, but I really need to fill a gap somewhere else. Thousands of saxophones, but actually we need someone on the trumpet. So I've used that ever since. But I got given the trumpet. Now, the reason that music became important to me is because I was, as I've mentioned before, that I was creative. I was good at art and doodling and drawing and that kind of stuff, and puppets. But my grandma was blind for my entire life, though I knew her. She wasn't when she was younger, and so she couldn't really appreciate many of those things. I could draw a thing, say, "Oh, look at this," and she'd go, "I can't see." So I oh yeah, I wrote that. I thought learning a musical instrument, this could be a thing that I could do, and I could play the trumpet to her. I mean, if you'd heard me in the first few weeks, you wouldn't have wanted to hear it. But that was the plan. And on the 1st of July, 1992, my grandma passed away, and she never really got to hear me play. And so it stuck with me for many, many years that I was, by the way, I was awful. I didn't know, as they quote in The Music Man, I didn't know a bass drum from a pipe organ. I couldn't tell the difference between the two. The musician I've become today is purely through JLGB. I had no clue. Couldn't play the piano, couldn't play anything. It didn't have music lessons at Bass Shamai, that's for sure. And so this thing became really important to me in terms of I couldn't play to her, so I'd play in honor of her. And very shortly afterwards with the trumpet, the great thing about the trumpet is that as well as playing in the band, it was called upon to be used at remembrance services. And before I knew it, 14, 15 years old, I got asked to play it. It's funny, the first thing I ever played at was VJ Day, 1995. So I only had VJ Day a couple of days ago. So what, that 25 years ago? Is it more? Well, I don't know. Someone says 13, but I don't want to know. I can see you all adding it up. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. And that was my first encounter with the leaders of Ajax. Ajax I knew very well because my grandfather marched every year, but I got to know a variety of people, and Jerry Bean over Sholem and others were huge mentors to me. And through that, and there's many others in JLGB that did the same thing, we would go to different remembrance services and play Last Post. And there was something about when you got a group of people that had ex-service men and women, and Remembrance Sunday or Ajax Parade, etc., or numerous things around the country and later around the world, that there's a huge sense of responsibility to play it right the first time. And there's many people, again, in the bands that will know the first time they ever play it, it's always awful. And you need to have that one time when it goes horribly wrong to learn how to get it better. But I with the second time I played, I think it was at Woodside Park Shore from a remembrance event, I got it spot on, and it echoed around the room, etc. And people came up to me and they were crying. And it goes back to what I said before about making people happy or an emotion. I realized that to those ex-servicemen and women, the Last Post was a symbolistic point before the minute's silence where they could remember, and that bugle call would chime a memory with people about the people they'd lost, bearing in mind that the standards of Ajax and the things we do are not about just the people that survived, it's the many people that didn't come back, and they remember their comrades, etc. At that moment, you've got a duty to play your heart out and to milk it for as much as you can, not because you're trying to perform, but because you know you want to get an emotion there, because that's what they want. And I've done that on and off Remembrance Sunday, minus the last 2 years or so for a variety of reasons, every year. And then through that, and working with Ajax and an organization I love deeply, I was asked to go on a trip. I went on March of the Living, in fact. We had Scott Saunders on a couple of weeks ago. I went on March of the Living 20 years ago when nobody went on March of the Living in the UK, walked around with a rucksack with my trumpet on and played the Last Post in Auschwitz, in the Warsaw Ghetto, etc., and numerous other places, etc. And it's been a proud privilege to do that. We took a band to Bergen-Belsen as well 10 years ago, I think it was. So music has been a great thing in that sense, but also teaching kids in the band. And Debbie's, your mother, is watching, and she'll know that when she had Hannah, your older sister, she said, you just take over for a couple of weeks and I'll be back. And 18, 19, 20 years later, she's still, so I'm hoping next Monday or after coronavirus, it's your turn to come back. But it's teaching kids music and passing that on. And again, a tangible skill and knowing what I got out of it and knowing what it means to me is why I still do it now.
Thank you so much, Abby and Debbie. Our next question is going to come from Samuel.
Hi, Samuel. You're muted, Samuel.
Oh.
There you go.
Hi. So you've been the chair of Yom HaShoah UK for many, many years. So what was it like to run this year's ceremony remotely and virtually? And why was it so important to you to not just postpone it?
Thank you. I find it slightly ridiculous with all these things that I chair Yom HaShoah UK. I go back to the fact I'm a kid from Ilford Jewish Primary School chairing the UK's Jewish response to Holocaust remembrance. What went wrong in our community that I got that job? And the answer is Yom HaShoah became a forgotten thing on the calendar. Holocaust Remembrance Day, rightly so, remembers externally. Numerous things happen along the way. And for some reason, it wasn't being remembered the way it could be. And what happened was when I came back from Auschwitz on the Ajax and Yad Vashem trip, and I got to know a whole load of people through the Jacques Weiser and Sir Ben Helfgott and Jeffrey Pinnock and others that have been tremendous supporters of mine over the years and looked after me. I helped them turn it into something like I did with JLGB to make it more modern. And then Jeffrey asked me to take over as chair several years ago. And then we've organised a series of events, including the one with Sadiq Khan a few years ago. We were all ready this year to have 10,000 people at Barnet Stadium. Of course, coronavirus hit. But again, a bit like virtual and connected to virtual, just because you couldn't do the actual event didn't mean you couldn't capitalize on what was happening to bring the community together. It's a very, very strange thing to say. I've said to others, and I have to phrase this carefully for want of accidentally offending anybody. But in April, a country in lockdown, the Jewish community all over the place, everyone all over the place, etc. Through the remembrance of Yom HaShoah, we brought the Jewish community together with the Maccabi Yellow Candle, with thousands of people watching online. We thought we'd had no idea the response we would get, and we're very grateful to the Prince of Wales for agreeing to do a video message as well, and numerous people that did messages, etc., and the support from everyone that we had across the community, that it captured a moment. There was never a thought, there was never ever a thought of postponing the event, even if it had to be done virtually. And fortunately, a bit like JLGB Virtual, there was a series of things that fell into place that meant we could do it in a really good way, and that would capture the imagination. And really proudly, and with the help of many kids from primary schools as well, we did the Never Again song virtually with 100 kids in it, and it's had over, I think it's nearly 750,000 views on Facebook, etc. To remind, because it's really important that this year is the 75th anniversary. So why not postpone it? You can't get back this anniversary. The survivors and refugees of our community have given so much to us in the same way that ex-servicemen have. They were stuck at home in isolation. They needed to know that we would remember, even under difficult circumstances. And so I thought this would be a slightly more regular year. I thought that 2020 would be quite normal. I just had Barnaby with Ginny as a son. I thought I'd maybe take a little bit easier this year, and suddenly never worked harder in my life, but proudly so. And again, a bit like with Last Post and Reaching, that we've managed to use Yom HaShoah to strike a chord with people, to know that even in the darkest hour, we can give hope through the survival of what the survivors and refugees went through, which is far worse than what we're going through now, even though hundreds of thousands of people around the world have died through this terrible disease. We know that historically people have triumphed over adversity, and that's why we couldn't postpone it. That it had to be a call to everyone to say we can do this, and actually, no matter the circumstances, we'll always remember.
Yeah, that is very important. Thank you.
Pleasure, and well done to you too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Samuel. So many people want to ask a question tonight, rightly so. So we have loads more left to go. So I'm going to jump straight on over.
That's the cue. That's the cue we use when a speaker's talking too long. So what you're saying is, can you hurry up with your answers? Because Ellie wants to finish by 9:10. I know. I can see the WhatsApp message. I can't see. My phone's off. I know nothing about this, but I know what's going on. You're being prodded. Dinner's in the oven, and she wants to. She wants to watch Lower Decks on Netflix or something, and so we'll hurry up. Sure.
Great answers though. We're going to go to Gaia.
Hi, Gaia.
Hiya. So my questions are few, but tonight's obviously the 75th episode of JLGB Virtual, which is really exciting. And the show was set up within 5 days of lockdown. So how did you manage to achieve that so quickly? And have you managed to get such an incredible array of guests on the show each night? And which was your favourite?
Oh, that's going to be... I'm just going to offend everyone if I answer that, but we'll give it a go. give it a go. No one was prepared for this pandemic. Robert Winston said it when he was on here, Professor Winston. Daniel Carmel Brown said it for Jewish Care, who've done a tremendous job, as have many charities in our community, to beat and to ensure that the safety of everyone in our community. But I do feel as the JLGB has prepared me and many others for that one day there'll be a time when JLGB will be called upon and we must be ready. 125 years of our history have said, come the day, come the hour, we will be there. And I've grown up with stories, and you'll all know it, and it's been talked about by Henry and Paul Anticone of World Jewish Relief and others. You'll know the story of the Kitchener camp. But the JLGB part of that is very much uncredited. That when German Jews were fleeing Nazi Germany before the Holocaust started, that Ernest Joseph, who was part of both JLGB and World Jewish Relief and others, got the license to bring people across, and a camp was set up with my predecessor, Jonas May, so the role I had in JLGB, but in the late 30s, and basically they ran a camp, fully fledged camp for years and saved 4,000 or 5,000 refugees. Now, I'm not comparing this to anything there, but we grew up with stories of when come the day, come the hour, we'll be prepared. So I always wondered and always thought, and through CST and others, you think about disaster recovery planning and what would happen if, etc. I've always had in my mind, and growing up with Ajax and everything else, what would happen if and that. And so in my brain, I was always ready for, and I love the major incident planning that we do on camps, that Adam does and Ben does and others, etc. Just kind of, Stefan, to think about that we're ready for everything in that sense. We're absolutely not ready for coronavirus and what's happened. But equally, with my digital background and others, and we saw this coming for several weeks in advance, I said to Adam Shelley, who's listening now and the greatest JLGB volunteer of our generation and works his heart out every single day and has done for the last 5 months as well, along with Gabby and Georgia and others. I said to him in March, early March, lockdown is coming. We need to be ready for X, Y, and Z. And if we plan this bit right, we will be ready to run. And this is what I want to do. This, and this. The basic concept of virtual, I could see it, as I said before, I visualized in my head in that sense. And I think Adam said, well, we've got a couple of weeks to go. And literally 3 or 4 days later, the announcement came the 16th of March. If you don't need to go out, don't go out. And I remember sitting in my office, everyone's looking around, what are you going to do, etc. And I knew the plan. It was in my head, I needed time to process it. And over the next few days, launch this thing with support of the entire office, who've been absolutely phenomenal. We've worked day and night to get this thing ready, but we were ready. The JLGB as an organization was ready for this next step, was ready to do a variety of things, and we launched on that first Monday. And with the help of people like Sasha, as Magic, and a variety of other people in terms of the programming, and Josh Diamond and others that have helped plan the program each night with everyone else as well. And by the way, I'm going to forget throughout this interview to name somebody. Whoever you are now, I apologize, as I'm going to get letters later. I'm trying to think of everyone as I go along. But we've been planning it for weeks and weeks and weeks to get ready for that kind of stuff. And I then thought to myself, who do I know that we supported JLGB before? And ultimately, when lockdown was called, after our first, we had Ashley James in the first week and Marsha Gladstone, who and Richard and Justin from the Jewish News, who might help us? And then it dawned on me that no one can leave the house. If you tell me you can't help, you're probably lying. And if I can get through to you and say, will you give us half an hour? In many cases, they weren't doing anything, although what they would normally do was in turmoil. And providing that, because there are some people in entertainment industry that have been really affected because they haven't done as well, that they've not lost their gigs and things. So many people that this is not a great time for, but there are a variety of people that can afford to give half an hour time and support young people. And in their droves, they said yes, and with the support of Lord Levy as well for our high profile political guests and other community foundation people and ambassadors, etc. And Craig David, of course, through Lord Levy and the support of Colin Lester. Everyone has said yes. And then we had this genius idea, and I forget how we did it, where we added in the who would you like to nominate question. And that led on to some absolutely phenomenal guests, Tanny Gray Thompson, Rupert Graves, etc., and numerous people that we wouldn't have in a million years done. In terms of my favorite guests, I must just say my favorite part of Virtual is acts of kindness. It is at the heart of what we do. So the guests are wonderful, the skills are wonderful, our funders are wonderful. It's put us on the map in terms of that we've kept going, we've flown the flag, and we've had amazing emails from people all over the country that are watching it every night, etc., which is great. Acts of kindness, and with Georgie and others that have done that every night, Tyre and Levy, has been the epicenter of why we do what we do. But in terms of my favorite guest, I think it has to be Jeff Garlin, Abby's interview with Jeff Garlin. I think that just was hilarious and just really kind of, unlike me, which is a bit more serious talking about stuff, was just really a light-hearted look at life and enjoyable in that sense. And Ethan's question was just amazing. So I just so it's just been a roller coaster ride, and along the way, everyone, volunteers, staff, trustees, everybody's come together to make this work in the perfect alignment, and it's just been something to be really, really proud of. And all of you that are in the Zoom now that have been involved in this should know that this little show is being seen by loads of people, hundreds of thousands of people. We've been talked about everywhere, and I'm proud to be a CEO of an organisation that has saved the day and done its bit for young people and families, people that have been stuck at home, adult volunteers as well that have found a purpose because they need something to latch onto to give them a sense of how can I help. And of course, really, really quickly, knowing that I'm being rushed by Sydney, we are, as a volunteering organisation, like many others, JVN included, we've been grounded. Normally would go out and help the community. Normally would go out and, even hand out leaflets, be a steward, direct, etc., volunteer through the DOV, Yoni Jesna Award, etc., and go out and do stuff and be the people that says, you need some young people to help solve this problem, we're here. None of us have, the most important thing of this pandemic and JLGB is to keep young people safe. So young people haven't been able to go out and be that part of that mobilization. That day is coming, by the way, and JLGB are at the forefront of how helping as we can, and we'll be very much looking forward to evolve and what Ricky's going to do with that in the days and months ahead. But this response was to help young people stuck at home have a real sense of routine, learn skills, continue to count their awards, and I couldn't be prouder of all of you and our young hosts that you're watching tonight, and Gaia included, our Leeds representative. And that's been the other great thing, be it Guy in Birmingham, that this has been national and everyone's been equal, and it's been great to bring everyone together.
Thank you, Gaia. We're going to jump straight over to Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Neil.
Hi.
Sorry, muting problems again. So you've spoken previously about the mentoring you received from our president, Lord Levy. How, and actually you especially with sort of securing interesting interviewees for this, how crucial is he to JLGB's success, and what would you say is the best lesson you've learned from him?
So to just talk about Lord Levy in terms of he found us some guests for Virtual would be the world's biggest understatement of a man that has turned JLGB's dreams into reality. I say that in the sense of, in those practical ways, and to us, having Craig David was a pinnacle of years of support that we've had from him. Daniel Carmel Brown talked about it from Jewish Care, Richard Kramer from Sense, etc. Here's a man who did not have to take on the presidency of JLGB. He'd done enough, full stop, in the community, Jewish Care, UJA, Volunteering Matters of CSV, etc. Here's a man who, when Norman approached him, I think 13 years ago now, Maven, did not have to say yes to doing this job, but he saw something in JLGB and thought, I'm going to help. And from that moment on, he said it himself, he's either on or he's not. He's helped in every way, shape or form. And it's not about just finding funding. His strategic brain is unbelievable. The support he gives the trustees, myself, the team, the encouragement when we do have any issues to help guide us through, etc., simply phenomenal. And we couldn't do it without him. Now, I said before, I'm a creative person. I have a lot of ideas, but ideas without foundation, ideas without funding, ideas without the community support to back you in that sense is nothing. I went into places prior to Lord Levy being president, and the door would be closed. I talked about JLGB being kind of, a forgotten organization. Lord Levy came in as president, and before I even walked through the corridor, the door was open. Hello, Neil, how are you? I've heard so much about you. I don't know why, but he has mentored me. He has guided me. Yet again, he hasn't had to, etc. He's treating me like a son or a grandson, depending on which way you want to look at it, etc. And has helped guide me in every way, shape, or form. And to see him proud and to see something go well, like the Craig David event or Virtual, and to be happy with what we're doing, is a great feeling. And he and Jeff Shear and others that have supported along the way have made everything we do, and and Norman, if I'm sure Norman is listening, would agree entirely that he has helped turn the wild-eyed ideas of a young boy who's wet behind the ears, as he told me many times, to turn this organization to what it deserves to be. He called it the Cinderella organization, and he's taken us to the ball and back again. And we ain't seen nothing yet. And I live and long and pray that he will do this for as many years as we can convince him to. And I hope he will do that, because we are showing him that we are worthy of that support. And he sees, by the way, in all of you, the future. And JLGB is not an organization for one particular group of people. You're all over the country. You're from all different social mobility backgrounds, all different abilities, children with special needs, children with different abilities, children with different family circumstances, children that are going to succeed in one sense or another, university, not university, everybody. JLG is a place where you can come along, go on that journey and be who you want to be. And he sees that. And he's doing everything we can for our future to make it happen. I couldn't be prouder of him to be our president. Thank you, George.
Thank you, George. So back to me for a couple of questions then.
Sure.
Anyone that knows you will always say that you are both remarkably creative and also have an amazing ability to stay calm when under pressure. You've been mentored by lots of people in JLGB, Lord Levy, who we've just heard about, Jerry Bean, Albert Greenback, Charles Kay, Norman Levinson, to name a few. But how have these people inspired you, and what's your secret to keeping calm under pressure?
So I should say that the late Alan Greenback would find that hilarious, because Alan Greenback used to keep a book of people that would call him Alan Green Splat, Alan Greenback, etc., Albert Greenback, etc. So I find he would be enjoying that now, wherever he is upstairs somewhere, thinking about JLGB. But he as a youth leader, previous trustee of NICFIS, National Council of Voluntary Services, and his citation on his OBE was for young people in interfaith services, which is exactly the same citation that I have on mine. He was a great mentor. Lord Levy, in my years as CEO, has been unbelievable. Norman Terrett deserves huge credit behind the scenes for being even more idealistic and dreaming than I am. I have to sometimes bring him down in terms of how we're going to turn this into a thing, etc. He has been phenomenal, as have all the trustees herself. His wife, Edna, another person that without her tremendous work over the years of JLGB, I must mention the late Howard Harris in that sense. When I was 16, and I had an argument with my parents when I was 16, and I went to Camperdown to help out, and I helped out Ian Dunn and the late Ian Levany, and I know Linda's watching. There are tremendous people in JLGB of all ages that support everybody. Ian with the quartermastering, etc., Richard Weber, Howard Harris, so many people internally of our age and older that have supported us in a whole variety of ways, and externally, so many people as well. Far too many to name, and I'll forget people in that sense. But I have been, and Ajax as well, I've been blessed to have been supported. And I feel like a bit of a bridge between the old and the new. So I've been downloaded with the memories of people that are sadly no longer with us to understand what the purpose was of JLGB in its entirety through Charles Care and others, what the legends of Ajax, etc., and others. And I now, and a connection with the young generation to try and find that bridge where we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, find the future and find that perfect synergy of making an organization that we're proud of and where we've come from, but is relevant for the future. And I've been pushed by these people along the way. Mentoring, I should say, is not just a case of this is how you do it. Challenging. People actually say, that's fine, Neil, but how are you going to do it? Where's the tuchlis? Do it already, etc. And through Lord Levy to others, etc., they have not only guided me, but inspired and pushed me to actually move this organization forward. And I'm very, very lucky.
So in 2017 then, after all of this, you received your OBE at Buckingham Palace from Prince Charles. What was the ceremony like? How did you and your family feel when you heard that you were awarded an OBE?
It is and remains ridiculous. In every way, shape or form. I mean, maybe through talking through this evening, people get an idea of what I actually do and what I'm trying to achieve, but it doesn't happen in that order of stuff. And I'm very proud for numerous things we've done. But as you said before, I think I saw Prince Charles 3 times that week in a whole variety of things. And if there was more time, I'd tell you about those amusing stories. And I'd been in that throne room literally 4 days before for the band to play. And then 4 days later, I'm in the same room again. And it felt completely different. I was in total awe. And I have to tell you that my parents are what sprang to mind in that sense. I talk a lot about my mum, and she met us in, etc. My dad, up until very recently, was a nighttime black cab taxi driver for about 50 years. He grew up as the youngest son of 7 in the East End in a house that had 7 people in it with 2 rooms, etc. Total and utter poverty beyond my comprehension, and many that grew up then. However bad it was then, his family had it. It was on the the real welfare and support end of stuff, and the support of people like Norwood and others. He somehow did the knowledge and a variety of things, and there have been many traditions of Jewish black cab drivers doing that kind of stuff. And every night, 6 nights a week, went out and was a taxi driver. Because of that, I get to dream, think about what I want to do, make choices in my life, help other people, and work. And as hard as I ever work, we'll never have to make the sacrifices he and others of that generation made in that sense. So I'm very fortunate to be on the shoulders of them and my grandparents, etc., and others. And of course, my mother as well, who's very community minded. That's where I get that side of it as well. And my grandmother was empathetic in that kind of way, and listening skills, etc. Everything about it was about validation for them. That I always say that my dad was disappointed because he wanted me to be Dr. Martin like the shoes. So OBE is still not quite enough for them. But it was all about. And the many people that said, why are you doing this role? And is it worth it? It was validation in the sense of JLGB was on the map. This wasn't about me. This was a signal award to all those volunteers and 125 years or whatever it was then of people to know this organization was back on the map and being recognized. And it was all about them. But there was a real sense of pride for the generations of my family that had been through what they'd been through to allow me to basically muck around all day and create a youth organization and have fun and make people happy. So that's the most thing that came out of the OBE, and still to this day in terms of using it. It has no advantages, by the way. It maybe a couple of celebrities have answered a DM because they saw that William Shatner commented on a tweet the other day. So you never know. So maybe it has some kind of unnecessary quirk in that sense, but otherwise it has no real benefit. But what it does is remind me of what a great organization it has and what it's given me to do that. But ultimately, it's about my family and making them proud.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. We're going to go back to some more audience questions now. So the first one is from Sydney.
Hi.
I'm not from Love Island, I'm afraid. Is that a disappointing guest to have?
It's all right. So you are also involved in numerous interfaith projects. So that as the chair of the Interfaith Youth Trust or through JLGB awards-winning mixed faith national citizen service that you've fought so hard to run. Why do you believe that it's important for the Jewish community and wider society to take part in the interfaith work?
I am not in any way, shape or form political, never have been, etc. As I say, my leadership skills comes from 1980s cartoons and not from particular streams or spectrums of religiosity or isms in that sense. And when I grew up in Gants Hill, my next door neighbours was a Muslim family, and they had my brother and I in our house, and they had two sons and a daughter, and we grew up with best friends, and sometimes the fence we took away and we'd share the garden, that kind of stuff. I grew up in a world where there was no differences in that sense. I went to a Jewish school by day, and here are our great friends that we'd do roller skating with and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until many years later and things happened, and the horrible association of things like 9/11 with an entire Muslim community unfairly, and other things that happen in conflicts in the Middle East and around the world, that made a difference between us and them. And I never quite understood it. And I also felt that really proud of the work we do with our Jewish schools, with DOV, etc. But our young Jewish children aren't getting as much chance to interact with others. And if you don't interact with others, then other people won't meet young Jewish people. And is there a way, in a kosher and Sabbath-friendly way, I can say Shabbat here because I'm not talking to civil servants, in a Shabbat-friendly way, that we can trust that our community can continue and be who it wants to be, but we can also be a light to the nations as well, or as our objects say, be a credit to our country and our community in that kind of way. And when National Citizen Service came along, it felt like the perfect opportunity. I am a huge advocate of the program. People know that I campaigned because it wasn't as the barriers to participate as a faith person of the Jewish community, Muslim faith, wasn't as accessible as I'd like it to be. And we fought hard with the help of the board and of the chief rabbi and others to unlock that. And then we won 2 national charity awards. But ultimately, if we teach our young people about their commonalities, if they try and solve the world problems together in their local community, to help kids with mental health, to support the elderly, to look at a variety of challenges in a society by working together, surely the world will be a better place. And if they do that as well, then they'll have the acceptance, not just the tolerance, to say, I may have a different faith to you, but I am your friend, and these are the things we have in common, and we can respectfully disagree on other things as well. I don't see enough of that. And also with NCS, it was the first residential thing where young people would go away together for 3 weeks. So it was that's why it was so groundbreaking in that sense. But ultimately, as our community dwindles in numbers, and as we're being attacked more and more just for our existence, has been the case in recent weeks, the more I feel our community needs to be out and about as ambassadors, helping wider society through volunteering and doing that with others. And that's my passion for it, and to make, again, millions of people happy.
Thank you, Sydney. Our next question is going to come from Emma.
Hi, Emma.
Hi.
Hi.
So youth social action is at the heart of JLGB, and the Evolve Youth Volunteering and Skills Initiative, that was your brainchild. I love receiving my Evolve awards at the epic celebration event with Craig David last year. So can you tell us a bit more about Evolve, how it started, and why you think it's so important for young people to get involved with volunteering?
Sure. So that's there's so many parts of that, which is the history of Evolve, that if I gave you the full answer to that, I really would be told off by Sydney. So let me focus on the things that are important for everyone who is watching to understand. First and foremost, every young person should have the right and ability to volunteer, and our charities in our community and wider society do not take young people's volunteering seriously enough. The skills and abilities, and outside of the pandemic world we're living in now, the digital knowledge you have, the enthusiasm, the time you have, the passion you have on causes that are even further in terms of climate change and supporting those with mental health and the elderly, etc., go away and beyond where they have done in previous situations, and a real need to want to help in that sense. Yet our charities, for a variety of reasons, sometimes it's capacity, because they'd love them to be involved, but haven't got the wherewithal or the support to do that, have not taken young volunteers seriously. They're just doing their DOV and ticking a box, or the Yoni Jesna Award, etc. And we know that it's more than that, and that was at the heart of it to a certain extent. But very, very, very quickly, let me just say one thing. Evolve is a collective impact project. What does that mean? It means if everyone's working to a similar outcome, we stand a chance of achieving it in that sense. So if our mission is to make young people really support the beneficiaries of our community that are in need, and I don't just mean supporting charities, but making a change of those beneficiaries, etc. So there are less homeless people, less lonely people, less people that need support in a variety of ways, not just to tick hours, etc. If we want to achieve that, then if our schools, if our parents, if our charities, if our synagogues, if our youth groups, if our businesses work together in a similar kind of way, then we might stand a chance of that alignment happening and being achieved. And what Evolve essentially is the digital understanding of that. If you take, I'm trying to think of what I've got here, I can use this pen, here we go. If you take this pen as a person, if you know this person, their age, where they live, what school they go to, their synagogue, etc., and you track the person, not the organization, you can suddenly see the impact this person is having around the world. And it's not anymore about whether the community's changed, about people going, people don't just go to the same place anymore. They're multifaceted. They've made their own a la carte menu of choosing what they want to do across youth and women's society, etc. If you can track the person digitally of all the good deeds they do, then you can track two people from the same school and see the collective impact of one classroom. You can see the impact they've made there. You can see all the impact that young people made on Mitzvah Day, all the impact they made for Jewish care, all the impact they made for that particular school, that synagogue, etc. And it's not just about collecting the hours. It's also then saying, well, finding out what the need is. And if you know the skills of that person, this person really into coding and also likes gardening, and this charity has a need, you can match them in a much more collective way where the chance of that person wanting to do it is higher, retaining them is higher. And so Evolve is trying to really, obviously there's the journey of the awards from the Yoni Jesna Award up to NCS and DV in between, that's the age progressive thing, that from the age of 8 with the new Chief Rabbi's Award all the way up to 25, there's something to do. But ultimately, if we get this right, there's 2,000 young Jewish people involved in Evolve, it's not easy to say, is it? Enrolled in Evolve each year. If everybody completed their awards over the next 3 years, it would be 450,000 hours given to society. If charities can help unlock that, if teachers can prioritize that, and I say that tentatively knowing that teachers and others have got enough to worry about at the moment in this current crisis, but in the overarching outcome view, if everyone works together to that sense, then the workforce of young people to make a difference inside our community, there should never be a Jewish charity that is short of volunteers. And I hope that with JVN, with Mitzvah Day, numerous other organizations, we can work together for that dream in harmony to actually achieve that, where every synagogue, every school, every charity buys into this ultimate outcome of that young people are our future, and investing in them through volunteering will not only help our future, but guarantee your charity, the next generation of fundraisers, trustees and supporters. That's what Evolve's all about.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma.
We are going to head on now over to Joel for his question.
Hello, Joel.
Hi, Neil. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Can you believe that over 10,000 young people have now taken part in kosher DOV? Did you take part in DOV, and what would you say to the benefits of people watching now are the benefits of taking part in the award?
I still have on my CV that I'm taking part in my gold DOV. I'm I think 25 years too old now to do it maybe, but I did my silver DOV, and legendary. I am not built for sport or fitness and that kind of stuff. Just about blowing the trumpet was the exercise I got on most weeks. There are photos of my rucksack full of cola pop bottles and bars of chocolate. I was struggling. I was miles behind the rest of the group. And the reason was I was carrying 4 stone of supplies with me so I could eat Mars bars and things all along the way. I am the world's worst hiker. But DOV is the most amazing award. And it's not just about the expedition, it's about all the sections, etc. And since 1962, we've been, since the second pilot in the first year, we've been running the DOV for the Jewish community. And when I inherited my role in JLGB and looked at what DOV was doing, and an advent of more and more Jewish schools, and we've been running DOV in JFS for 30 plus years, and then along came Yavna and JCOS and numerous people. And for our outreach program, we were running DV, in a lot of these schools prior to that as well, and Hasmo and Beis Shammai back then, bless it. We weren't getting as many people through it as possible. And I said, if we are going to be the license body for this award, then we need to take this seriously and we can scale it up. And why every Jewish child deserves the right to take part in the Duke of Edinburgh's award if we can remove the barriers. And I have to say, thanks to the support of the Pears Foundation over the last 10 years or so, we've scaled this thing up massively. There's nearly 1,000 kids a year doing the DOV. Obviously, right now, they can't do it in every way. They can't do the expedition. Obviously, they can do skills and volunteering through JLGB Virtual. But the expedition is proving somewhat complicated at the moment. But it's one of my proudest achievements to be able to help young people take part in something with Dan and the DOV team, 21 expeditions every summer, etc. Barry Heeger, I should mention, who hopefully is on Zoom now, 87, I think he is, has helped on the first gold DOV expedition all the way back in 1960 something, and has helped every way through and still doing it now. This is one of the great tools that JLGB has. And Kurt Hahn, who created the DOV with the Duke of Edinburgh, who was Jewish many, many years ago, talk about mind, body, soul, and that kind of stuff. If you watch The Crown, you can see all about it in that sense. But it is the perfect character building award and it so supplements and complements the work of JLGB, and it's something I'm really, really proud of.
Thanks, Joel. We are now going to move swiftly into our 5 very last quick questions.
Oh, wow. You're being told off, aren't you? You wanted me to do this, don't cut me short.
We won't. Our next question is going to come from Guy.
Oh, no, I'm worried now. This is the one that does all the political questions and has interviewed Gerald and others. But you're muted, Guy. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Neil. Yeah. This is a very political question.
Oh, great.
So I know that it's also been a question that's kind of occurred quite often in our interviews with special guests. And so my question is, what is your favorite musical?
That's the hard-hitting one, isn't it? It's it's actually very simple. I actually mentioned it before, and it's a musical that none of you will know, except to say that post-lockdown, Hugh Jackman is reviving it on Broadway, and that is The Music Man. Meredith Willson's The Music Man with Robert Preston, who embodies that guy who comes into the town and says, I want to start this marching brass band, and he has no clue what he's doing. He's a complete charlatan, etc. And he teaches the kids of River City, Iowa, how to form this band. And by the end of it, when he gets caught out, he has to stay, and he helps make it all happen. I feel just as much as a fraud as him. I love the music through that. I even went to Gary, Indiana, when I was in Chicago, just to go there for 2 seconds. This will mean nothing to all of you, etc. But to me, it's like the Glenn Miller story with James Stewart, where I watched that and had to go out and get a trombone and teach myself to play that, etc. There's something about that film, which is, and like Mr. Holland's opus as well, there's something about that film that it feels like something to aspire to in that sense, and that sense of showmanship. And there's no one greater than Robert Preston in that sense, in the music, etc. So none of you will have seen it. It's probably not even on Amazon or Netflix. It's so out of date, but it is by far. Except I should say that Emily Diamond, when they say number 76 on bingo and they say 76 trombones, that's where it comes from, The Music Man. So you made me feel really old that day when you went, I don't get it, what's 76 trombones? And there she is. 76 trombones led the big parade. So yes, that's my favorite musical by far.
Thank you, Guy. We're going to go to Izzy now for our final audience question.
Hi.
Hi, Izzy.
Hi. So my question is, you became a father last year with baby Barnaby.
Yes.
Named after your grandfather, who was in JLGB, turning 1 during lockdown. How have you found juggling work with fatherhood, and were there extra expectations on you to be a good dad?
So, first of all, yes, Barnaby named of my grandfather. I mentioned my grandma before, who was a tremendous passive influence on me, a kind, empathetic soul. But many people know my grandfather, or would have known my grandfather, because he was a warrant officer in JLGB in the 50s and 60s. And if your parents were in it and learnt to box, he was the famous boxing instructor. So he was the complete opposite of me in that sense. And he was a legendary, you know, in the amateur boxing champion in the war and that kind of stuff, etc. And a real great spirit and character that many people know. And Simone from Redbridge Silver also helped with you, Izzy, as well at Redbridge. Her grandfather and my grandfather and others in Oxford St George's, and that were a great friend. And so to name my son after him was a tremendous connection and great as well. And also Ginny's uncle, great uncle, I think, was also a Barnaby in that sense. So when you run a youth organization, you're expected to know how to look after kids. And I think I'm a pretty good coach and mentor with teenagers. I think I'm good at inspiring people, putting out, there's so many hosts here that I'm so proud of who are, should I do this or not do this, inspire and work on the question. I think I'm pretty good at saying, you can do this, you can believe in it, and that kind of stuff. I have no idea what to do with a 1-year-old baby. It is, many of you have done babysitting. Well, no, I'm this, you know, the first baby I held in my life was Joshua Diamond. So I have no skills in that department. I'm learning along the way. I have to say, I have tremendous credit and empathy and understanding now for what mums do. Ginny is the most amazing mum. She puts up with me, and she's been brilliant. She was born to be a mum in that sense. I'm so proud of what she does. And in truth be told, and I can say this, and many people know that, but I have two loves. I have my family, and I have the JLGB family, and they're often in conflict with one another. And often at the detriment of my own family, I put this organization first, and we achieve what we achieve here. And I'm so proud of it. And it's been great to have Barnaby on. Many of you have been in the Zoom rehearsals and things we've done. Barnaby's on my knee and that kind of stuff. It's great to be at home in that sense. But I have given all the staff at JLGB the week off next week, because we have, in this crisis, been working our socks off. And that doesn't mean that our own staff haven't got their own family issues, people in isolation, people to look after, all kinds of other things and anxieties. And they've got their way through it. And I'm not complaining, because I've got the best job in the world, but I intend next week to switch my phone off, ignore all of you, and try and have a great week with my family.
Thank you.
Thanks, Izzy. Good to see you.
Thank you, Izzy. Just before I head on with the final 3 questions, I am just going to head over to Adam Shelley.
If it's anything to do with football, post Ian Rush and Jan Molby of Liverpool, I'll stop following it.
You've answered the question, Neil, so we can finish now and move back to Sydney. It was just this great opportunity. This has been in terrible circumstances of a pandemic. We've spoken every day for the last 5 months. And what we produce, I always said to you that I thought Evolve and Craig David was, you know, one of the best days, if not the best day for JLGB, and it could never be beaten. But I think what we've done for young people and the well-being of leaders over the last 5 months, led by you and your team and all the volunteers and absolutely everybody involved. On behalf of all the trustees, the volunteers and everybody, thank you so much for driving us forward in tremendously difficult times. But what an incredible achievement that we'll look back on and just see what we produced. And, you know, 75 evenings on virtual of people working together, hundreds of young leaders, you know, leaders that have been around longer. It's the most incredible achievement. And the feedback we've had from everybody just says it all. And on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything you've done for us.
No, thank you, Adam, and thank you to everyone involved. It's I might have an idea, but there's about 40 of you in this Zoom who have been involved almost every day. So you make it happen.
Thank you. Back
Thanks,
to Sydney.
Adam. Thank you, Adam. So as we enter year 126 of JLGB, and on the back of the success of Virtual and the short and the long-term impacts of the coronavirus, what are the future plans of JLGB?
So we've never not met for this long in 125 years. We closed during the war. Others who were there may tell me how long we were closed for on certain summer camps, but we haven't not run a summer camp since then. We've had a clean run of it, etc. And so this is unusual territory, and we're working hard now with the National Youth Agency Advice and Youth United to find a safe way to return, hopefully on the week of October the 12th, please God, which is the first Monday after Yom Tov. But of course, the way that the second wave and things are happening, that may not be possible. We're doing all we can to do that, etc. But lockdown has stopped the merry-go-round. Every day we work really hard prior to lockdown, dealing with the day-to-day stuff, and we're never able to plan for the future. Virtual has taken up a huge amount of time, but we compartmentalize it in a certain way so we can leave time for planning and not waste this opportunity to plan for the future. We've been building many things for months in advance of that, prior to that. And I remember talking with Jamie. I know Jamie would be here if he wasn't on holiday. You're a partner in crime. And you know that he interviewed the great Mervyn Kirsch, the VJ Day veteran, and you interviewed Lord Levy, and Guy interviewed Mark Regev, etc., and Abby, Jeff Garn and others. You have shown all of us what JLGB can be. We have struggled, as many uniform youth organizations do, to find that balance between being an adult-led organization and a youth-led organization, and how to do that right. And we have struggled with the stigma of what might be seen as the old guard of the Jewish Lads and Girls Brigade and the modern JLGB, and to find that balance. You have shown us, and Virtual have shown us, and all the young people that have been involved, and all the volunteers, and Gabby, George, and Adam, how this has allowed us to focus and do stuff really, really well. And we must not return to face-to-face activities in the way we did it prior. Whatever that may well be, whoever disagrees, doesn't agree, oh, it's not my JLGB, etc. I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why in a second. We must not wait. We've got to go forward. And Virtual has shown us, and to my certain extent, I kind of knew this already, but has shown everyone else. All of you here have seen what I saw in my brain JLGB could be. You now believe in, and not only believe it, you've done it. It's not about me. You've done that kind of stuff. And the volunteers, the professional staff and others, we're living a reality now. How dare we go back to how we were previously for all the work that you've put in? We must not, and we cannot do that. We have to move forward and be relevant for the next generation. Now, we have to be proud of our past, and we have to be proud of our heritage, and we need to make sure there's a connection with what we do, and that connection of responsibility, reward, recognition, family, progression, community, all kinds of things need at the heart of what we do. But we need to now, as we've had thousands of people watch each evening, metamorphosize into the organization we deserve to be and have deserved to be for many years. Now, some people that have been in it since it was the Jewish Lads Brigade may struggle with what that means, in the same way they struggle to watch Doctor Who now versus what it was in the 1960s. It's not the same thing. I understand that entirely. But for your sake, for Barnaby's sake, for Chloe and Brandon's sake, for numerous, the next generation of people, what organization do they need? And they've seen this, and their parents have seen this. And so when we go back in October, we're going to be a very different organization in many ways, but in some senses, exactly the same as we've been for 125 years. The Albert Goldsmith's ability or message to say, we want to create the next generation of leaders who we empower to reach their potential, and in exchange for that give back to their community, could not be more true now than it is today. But we must do it in a way that our young people need, our community need, our country need, and the next generation of adult volunteers will be inspired to support as well. So there will be people watching this that go, how are we going to do that? Where's it going to be? Lots of plans are coming, but see what we've done over the last 75 shows. See what our young people have shown. See how our volunteers have delivered amazing stuff. See our professionals have worked night and day in harmony and in alignment. Our trustees and Lord Levy at the forefront. All together, we've never been ready for where we are now. And the moment it's safe, we need to return with programs and activities that are fit for purpose and will take us into our next 125 years.
I mean, I know I am, and so I'm sure that everybody else is as well. So excited to see all of this come into action as soon as we're lucky enough to go back to face-to-face contact. These are still unprecedented times though, and the physical and mental health and economic impacts may affect us all for some kind of time to come. But do you have hope for the future? And what positives do you think are going to come out of this strange time?
You have to have hope for the future. And my mantras are never changed, of making people happy and lighting our darkest hour. For us, this is it. We've not experienced what others have. And what gives me hope for the future? I've answered it several times. You, Sydney, and Abby, and Jamie, and other Sydney, and Joel, and everyone else I've just forgotten. So apologies that have hosted along the way. Josh Cohen, didn't even know who Josh Cohen was 75 shows ago. What an amazing young man he is. Numerous people that have you are what our community needs right now. And when it's safe to do so, we'll mobilize physically as well to support the community. And this is not, I think this is going to get worse before it gets better. So we may not hit that October return date. We may not return till January. Spoiler alert, if you use a bit of risk assessment stuff, winter camp doesn't look very likely. Not my fault, by the way. Sorry, Amy and others. But the reality is that this is looking like it's going to go worse before it gets better. And we'll keep doing this. We'll do this every Thursday for the foreseeable. And if we can't open up, we'll do it every day like we have done until we can return. And I've got hope for all that we can be. Society will need us, and we need a next generation of people. Whatever this new normal looks like, I want to make sure the next generation is ready for it and to own it, lead it, and smash it. And Sydney, you and others have shown me that that is not only possible. We talk about making the leaders of tomorrow. We've made the leaders of today for today, and we must therefore bring you to the fore right now.
Thank you. So finally, as you know very well, we always ask our guests to nominate and ask another celebrity or community leader to be a future guest of our programme and to help entertain all the children and young people stuck at home. So if you've enjoyed tonight's experience, and I very much hope you have, who would you like to nominate?
It's a bit like when I say to Lord Levy, could we ask X? And he gives me a look to say, I've done enough. People cross the virtual street now when they see if I add them on Twitter. They know what I'm going to ask. So I am working on a few people. I asked Hacker the dog today if he'd be on it, because lots of people love him, and it's obviously a puppet as well. I'm working a variety of people. We're hopeful that the Mayor of London will join us in a few weeks' time as well. We've got the CEO of the National Lottery coming on as well, which, by the way, she's the CEO of the lottery that gives out the money, not the one that picks the numbers, because that's what everyone asked me. Because we know she's not going to give us that week's numbers. She's going to tell us about causes, etc. If those that watch Netflix, somebody feed Phil. Then I think Phil's coming on as well. If you don't know that, he also wrote Everyone Loves Raymond. So that we're working on a variety of things. And Ruth Green, I think, is watching as well. She had a great idea. What we want you to do is tell us who you want. And we will work on a campaign, and across, if we bombard enough people in the right way, and I'm looking at all the people I can see here in this group now, that if Emma and Adam and Lewis and Shirley and Steph and Nigel and Hillary and Linda and Gordon, Estelle and Simone and Adam and Josh and others who we can see on here, they've got their cameras on, Louis and Alex Mintzer, who's been tremendous, by the way, Yolanda and Ben and Ellie and Danny and Greg and Ben and Norman and everyone else I can see here. If I read them all out, Ellie really will tell me off. But if all of us combine efforts and we find out a way, there's not a single person. I would love to get the Prince of Wales on here. That's probably a big ask, but we deserve only the best. You deserve only the best. And that's what this is about. I'm looking at the people here. I can see generations of faces on Zoom. I've had it on a single view till now. I can now see everybody, so I wasn't off-put by the homed crowd and see all the booing and the people throwing fruit at the screen. This organisation is as good as all of us working together. So the answer is, who's next and who do I nominate? Whoever we want, and we'll get them.
Sounds great. So thank you, Neil, for joining us this evening and inspiring all of us. We have really loved getting to know you and your motivations better and hearing what's in store for JLGB in the future. Personally, I am so excited for the changes that you spoke about, and I'm looking forward to being part of the new JLGB that engages and supports many more Jewish people over and hopefully the next 125 years. We are truly, truly inspired by everything you have achieved, and we hope one day positively impact thousands of young people the way that you have. Good luck with everything that comes next, and on behalf of all of us at JLGB, I'd like to wish you a very, very happy birthday for Saturday. Stay safe, take care, and I really hope to see you again soon.
Brilliant job, Sydney. Thank you to everybody that's watching. Thank you to all those that have supported along the way, our funders, our trustees, our leaders, our volunteers. If I've forgotten somebody, I'm looking at Rory. Hi, Rory. If I've forgotten anybody, I apologise. Message me afterwards and I'll tell you how brilliant you are and why I love you. So, and to Ginny and Barnaby, I'm going to log off very shortly and not switch on again till after Bank Holiday Monday. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil. So that's it. This wraps up Virtual JLGB's Summer Extravaganza. Thank you to every single one of you that ran a session or joined us in our acts of kindness. A special thank you to every single one of you who simply tuned in throughout this time. Don't you worry though, because we will be back again in September with a brand new season and some really exciting new guests. But we have one last fun and game session on Zoom tomorrow evening at 6:30 till 7:30. Keep your eyes peeled and follow JLGB on all social media for more information and for more virtual activities going on over the coming months. For now though, go to jlgb.org/virtual to relive any of your favourite moments from the past 21 weeks. Until then though, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe and good night.